They laughed at her, without imagining who she could one day become. A simple visit to a fast food restaurant turned into the most quietly painful night of her life. And according to some accounts, that was the exact moment when something inside her broke and began to transform. What you are about to hear is a fictional narrative account, reconstructed from unverified versions and theories created exclusively for entertainment purposes. The complete truth may never have come to light. According to reports, Isabella entered that restaurant, carrying more than just a simple bag over her shoulder. She carried an entire day of failed attempts, a tired body, an exhausted mind, and a hunger that was not only physical. Some versions suggest she had spent hours walking through the city, entering different places, repeating the same phrases, hearing vague answers, and promises that never materialized. None of this has ever been proven. What is known is only what was later told by those who claim to have noticed the weariness in her eyes that night. The restaurant was too brightly lit for someone who wanted to go unnoticed. Strong lights, occupied tables, loud conversations mixed with carefree laughter. According to reports, it was the kind of place where everyone seemed certain they belonged there. Everyone except her. Isabella walked slowly toward the counter. Each step felt heavier than the last. She raised her eyes to the menu hanging above her head. The numbers seemed larger than they really were, or perhaps the weight of the day distorted everything. She did quick calculations in silence, added possibilities, subtracted dreams. "Just a simple sandwich, please," she would have said, almost in a whisper. According to reports, the attendant did not respond immediately. He paused, too briefly to be politeness, too long to be normal. He looked Isabella up and down, as if evaluating something beyond the order. Then he laughed. Some versions suggest the laugh was not loud. It was subtle, but full of meaning. Other people nearby may have heard it. Some looked away, others pretended not to notice. "Are you sure you can pay for that?" he would have asked, in a mocking tone. None of this was ever officially confirmed. But different versions agree on one specific detail: the silence that spread immediately afterward. Isabella felt her face grow warm. Her heart began to race uncontrollably. According to some accounts, someone behind her let out a restrained laugh. She tried to explain. She tried to smile. She tried to show that everything was fine. She tried to justify her presence there. But the embarrassment had already taken shape. According to reports, her hands trembled slightly as she searched for words that would not come. Her gaze drifted for a moment to the counter. The air felt heavier. Some versions suggest the attendant quickly lost interest. Others say he simply turned away, impatient, as if the situation were already settled. None of this has ever been proven. What is known is that Isabella did not raise her voice. She did not argue. She did not complain. According to reports, she simply stepped away from the counter, walked toward the exit, pushed the door open, and left. Without the sandwich, without a response, without looking back. Outside, the night felt larger than before, colder, quiet. Some versions suggest Isabella stood still on the sidewalk for a few seconds, as if still trying to process what had just happened. The city noise continued. Cars passed. People talked. But she felt isolated. She took a deep breath, lowered her head, and started walking. What no one inside that restaurant could have imagined was that this scene would not be just another forgotten moment at the end of the day. According to later accounts, that humiliation was not the end of something. It was a rupture. Something broke inside her. Some versions suggest that as she walked without a clear destination, Isabella felt something different from ordinary sadness. It was not just pain. It was a confusing mix of shame, restrained anger, and a heavy silence that did not ask for tears. None of this has ever been proven. What is known is only what was told later. The city remained indifferent. Lights turned on. Laughter echoed from nearby places, and Isabella kept moving forward. According to reports, she did not cry at that moment. The tears did not come right away. First came emptiness, a deep emptiness. She walked through streets she barely noticed, turned corners without registering names. Her body moved on autopilot. Her mind drifted through disconnected thoughts. Some versions suggest that each step repeated the same silent question: is this all there is? None of this has ever been proven. When she finally arrived home, according to reports, Isabella closed the door carefully. The space was simple, small, almost too quiet. A modest room, few pieces of furniture, a life contained within a few square meters. According to some versions, she let her bag fall to the floor, sat down with her back against the wall, wrapped her arms around her knees. There, for the first time that night, the silence truly weighed on her. She took a deep breath, tried to organize her thought, tried to understand how something so small could hurt so deeply. None of this has ever been proven, but some versions claim that in that moment, Isabella did something that would change the course of her story. It was not a motivational speech. It was not a detailed plan. It was not a promise spoken out loud. It was a silent decision, a decision no one heard, but one that would echo inside her for a long time. According to reports, she closed her eyes and thought only 2 words: never again. What exactly that never again meant, no one could explain at the time, but according to some versions, that was where the story truly began. According to reports, the days that followed were not easier. In fact, some versions suggest they were even quieter. Isabella began waking up early, not out of discipline, but because sleep no longer came the way it used to. She would lie still for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling, replaying scenes, words, looks. None of this has ever been proven. What is known is only what was later told by those who observed her from a distance. According to some versions, the scene at the restaurant returned without warning. The contained laugh, the cutting question, the surrounding silence. She got up, got dressed without hurry, and left. Her routine became simple: long walks, different places, the same responses. According to reports, Isabella resumed searching for opportunities. She entered buildings, spoke with strangers, filled out forms. Some versions suggest she heard "many will get back to you." Others say she heard only silence. None of this has ever been proven. What is known is that with each failed attempt, something inside her slowly rearranged itself. It was no longer pure despair. It was exhaustion mixed with awareness. Isabella began to observe more: people, words, behavior. According to reports, she started noticing patterns she had previously ignored, how some people were hurt easily, and how others had to prove twice as much. None of this was ever confirmed as fact, but these observations stayed with her. At night, according to some versions, she returned home exhausted, her body heavy, her mind restless. She would sit at the small table in her room, pick up an old notebook, and scribble loose ideas. There was no clear plan, not yet, only thoughts that needed to leave her mind. According to reports, she wrote questions, short notes, incomplete sentences. What if, maybe, why not? None of this has ever been proven, but gradually, that notebook filled with more pages, more lines, more attempts. Some versions suggest Isabella began studying on her own, searching for information wherever she could, observing examples, testing possibilities. There were no guarantees, no promises, only persistence. According to reports, there were days when she thought about stopping, about accepting anything, about forgetting that silent decision made on the floor of her room. But something always pulled her back. It was not pride. It was not pride. It was memory. The memory of the restaurant no longer hurt the same way. Now it worked like a constant warning. According to some versions, Isabella would think, "I can't go back to that emotional place." None of this has ever been proven. Time passed slowly, without visible changes, until, according to unverified reports, something small happened. Nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic. A brief conversation, a vague suggestion, a comment that seemed insignificant. According to some versions, someone mentioned a small project, something simple, almost invisible to most people. There was no promise of immediate return, no guarantee of success, but there was an opening. Isabella listened, thought about it, hesitated. According to reports, she almost declined. It seemed too small, too uncertain, but something about that opportunity felt different, perhaps because at that moment, she had very little left to lose. None of this has ever been proven. What is known is that Isabella accepted. The first days, according to some versions, were difficult. She made mistakes, went back, redid what she thought she had done right. There were doubts, there was frustration, but there was also something new: focus. According to reports, Isabella immersed herself in that small project, with a level of attention she had never given anything before. She observed every detail, learned from every failure. There was no audience, no applause, only her and the process. None of this has ever been proven. Time went on, without announcements, without witnesses, until, according to some versions, small signs began to appear: a positive response, an unexpected return, a conversation that didn't end in silence. Nothing major, but different. Isabella noticed, and that changed her posture. According to reports, she began organizing herself better, planning her days, setting boundaries, not because someone told her to, but because she decided to. The exhaustion remained, but now it came with purpose. None of this has ever been proven. Months later, according to unconfirmed versions, results slowly began to accumulate. Nothing flashy, nothing exaggerated, but consistent. Isabella no longer walked with her shoulders slumped. She no longer avoided eye contact. So often, according to reports, something in the way she spoke had changed. More grounded, more steady. It was not arrogance. It was newly discovered confidence. And while she continued moving forward, even quietly, fate, according to some curious versions, was preparing another encounter. An encounter that would bring two versions of the same story face to face. Nothing. According to reports, time continued to move forward, as it always does. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Isabella kept going. Nothing happened suddenly. No extreme transformation overnight. No single dramatic moment that could be pointed to as the exact turning point. According to some versions, the change happened gradually, quietly, from the inside out. She began dressing differently, not for status, but for comfort within herself. Her gaze no longer avoided mirrors. Her posture no longer apologized for entering a room. None of this has ever been proven. What is known is only what was later told. According to reports, the small project continued to grow, without attention, without exaggerated promises, but steadily. She no longer counted coins at the end of the day. She no longer calculated every step with constant fear. It was not wealth, it was emotional stability, and that changed everything. Some versions suggest that on an ordinary afternoon, Isabella decided to stop somewhere to eat. Nothing special, nothing planned. According to reports, she was walking absent-mindedly when she realized where she was. The same fast food restaurant. None of this has ever been proven, but multiple versions agree on this point. She stopped for a few seconds in front of the place, looked through the glass, the tables, the counter, the lights. Everything looked the same, except her. According to reports, Isabella considered leaving, turning the corner, choosing another place, but something made her go in. It was not revenge. It was not defiance. It was closure. She pushed the door open. A soft sound followed. The place was calmer than it had been that distant night. Few people, low conversations. According to some versions, the attendant was there, in the same position, wearing the same uniform, but his expression was different. He did not recognize her at first. How could he? This woman no longer carried visible shame. There was no hesitation in her steps. Isabella walked up to the counter. The menu is right there, he would have said automatically. She looked at it, and smiled gently. According to reports, she ordered the simplest item, the same kind of order she had tried to make months earlier. She paid, without hesitation, without mental calculations, and she thanked him. No irony, no confrontation, no revenge. According to some versions, the attendant paused for a few seconds longer than usual. Something about his expression seemed uncertain, perhaps delayed recognition, perhaps simple confusion. None of this has ever been proven. Isabella took her order, sat down for a few minutes. She ate slowly. According to reports, no one laughed, no one stared. The world kept moving. Before leaving, according to some versions, she returned to the counter, not to complain, not to accuse, just to say something simple. Kindness costs nothing. None of this has ever been officially confirmed, but that sentence appears in nearly every version of the story. She left. No applause, no final scene. The door closed behind her, and according to reports, the attendant remained still for a few seconds, thoughtful, not necessarily out of guilt, but reflection. What is known is only what was later told. Isabella continued her life. She did not become wealthy overnight. She did not become famous, but she became whole. According to reports, she began helping others whenever she could, not with speeches, but with attention. None of this has ever been proven, but the story spread, not as absolute truth, not as a historical fact, as a narrative, a story about silence, about boundaries, about refusing to let a moment of humiliation define the ending. And perhaps, according to some versions, the greatest turning point was not financial at all. It was human. If this story touched you in any way, leave a like. Subscribe to the channel for more emotional narrative stories like this one. And don't forget to watch the next video on your screen now. See you in the next story.